everybody. Welcome to the Manufacturing Matrix podcast. My name is Craig Scott, founder and CEO of FUUZ. And I've got a couple of guests with me here today. Lance, go ahead, say
Hi there.
hello.
Yeah, I'm Lance. I'm the director of engineering for the FUUZ platform. Been here a couple times on your podcast. Thanks for having me back.
Yeah, yeah. Well, you work here and you
I
sit
do.
next door to me.
Yeah,
So
you're kitty corner in the building. So
there's that. And we've got a really special guest here today. I'm really excited to have Walker Reynolds on the call with us. So Walker, I'll hand it off to you.
All right, awesome. Thanks for having me, Craig. So
Sure.
I'm Walker Reynolds. I'm a solutions architect and CEO at 4.0 Solutions and the ProveIT Conference. So actually, it's called the ProveIT Association. And I've been in industrial automation 26 years now this year. And I specialize in digital transformation, Industry 4, Industry 5. And over the last 5 years or so, I've been hyper focused on education across the three pillars. So systems integrators, end users, and OEMs like yourself. And most people may know me through either YouTube, LinkedIn, or Unified Namespace. Unified Namespace is an architecture I created in the early 2000s that has kind of taken off for the last few years.
Yep. We've
yeah,
we've talked a little bit about UNS with some of our crowd here. So, I'm sure that some of the people we work with have obviously heard of you and know of you, and there's a lot that don't. I run into folks, especially in the IT space, a lot that are like, "Who's Walker? What's that all about?" So I'm always trying to, get the word out. Uh, I'm really interested, and I think the folks that I talk to as well would be really interested to hear more about 4.0 Solutions and kind of some of the things that you guys do as an organization, how you
Sure.
work with manufacturers, what type of projects you've been involved with, all of that good stuff. I know you can go on about that for a minute.
Sure. So it's kind of a long answer, so bear with me. So my career has spanned 26 years. The first 12 years I worked in manufacturing. So um, I worked in the mining industry, I worked in the printing industry, I worked in the steel industry, and then tier one automotive. That was all by design. So I've held roles as electrician, mechanic at the very, very beginning of my career. And then I went and got a double E. And then I've been an engineer, technician, product engineer, automation engineer on the manufacturing side. And then I moved into consulting in 2012 ish. I moved over to the systems integration side and I worked for two integrators in the beginning of my consulting career. Both were kind of world class, not world class. One was 2013 System Integrator of the Year through CSIA, and then the other one that I went to next, they worked on the Mars rover, and I've
Mm,
worked for elite integrators. My space in the industry was really around unified namespace and digital transformation. Like the at the beginning of my career, I was always thinking like my perfect job is being able to control a complete plant, the total business, top to bottom. So from ERP all the way down to the edge from a circular desk. It was kind of like this joke I would make.
mm,
I imagine I could control, make all the decisions from just this circular desk. It's kind of my mindset, which is where unified namespace came from. Single source of truth, single pane of glass for all data and information, and treat all the smart things in the business as sort of a node and ecosystem. I started my own integration firm in 2015, Intellic Integration, which last year I sold to the employees. But during the first 4 years of the company, we were kind of working on the same project over and over and over again. We kind of got known that we were the integrator that you could call that would fix a failed digital transformation initiative. So we were the integrator who, if you tried it with enter in some big consultancy, we were the ones that kind of came in, were the fixers.
mm,
And my engineers were getting very frustrated with that. They were tired of coming in behind other people. We wanted to start on day one. So we started producing YouTube content in 2018 as Intellic Integration. And it was originally just, hey, stop making these mistakes. We were literally, it was the whole goal originally was I wanted to keep my engineers. And so it was just stop making these mistakes. Like, hey, you're either got the wrong digital strategy, you're picking the wrong partners, you have the wrong architecture. Okay. Those are the only reasons you're failing. And then I just started shooting videos on explaining, okay, what is a sound digital strategy? What does a rock solid architecture look like? And what are the minimum requirements for a partner that you can actually work with to do this, both OEMs and integrators? And that turned into this huge industry 4 community. It just sort of grew out of organically. It was just there was clearly this market for education. Like people didn't know how to do digital transformation successfully, or even what it was, or what IIoT was,
Mhm.
or and so a lot of it just started with that. And then in 2020, 4.0 Solutions was born. So basically, we had this massive community of tens of thousands of people who had been following us. They asked us to create a Discord server. So we did that. We run the Industry 4 Discord server. I think we have 8,000 members in that community server right now, of which you guys are
Yep.
members.
Yep.
And then they asked us to, the community asked us to put on a mastermind. And a mastermind was like, basically, it was originally this 4-hour workshop where I did a crash course in digital transformation. So strategy, architecture, minimum technical requirements, edge driven, report by exception, lightweight technology, unified namespace, agile project management, insight into current state, iterative development, like all the things that make digital transformation successful, including industrial Internet of Things platforms. What is a IIoT platform, right? Connect, collect, store, analyze, visualize, find patterns, report, and solve. And from there, it was, hey, you guys really should do education. And so 4.0 Solutions was born in 2020. We've been doing Mastermind and Mentorship. Mastermind is our flagship educational product. Basically, I think we have 400 students in that program. They pay an annual tuition, and they basically get everything we do, every workshop, all the mentorship sessions. They get everything. We have mentorship, which is focused on technical. So it's teaching engineers the technical skills they need to support digital transformation. And then we do all sorts of workshops quarterly. We put on multi-day workshops on very domain specific things. For example, we're in the middle of a 3 workshop series. In July, we did Model Context Protocol, a multi-day workshop on MCP. In September, we did REST APIs with knowledge graphs, and then where I'm doing the last workshop in November, where I'm doing advanced MCP and agent-to-agent protocol for industry. So that's kind of what we do, educating the market. And then another thing that we do is we do go-to-market strategy for end users. We do technical advisement for OEMs. We also do architecture for end users. So we do a thing called digital transformation maturity assessment. So our customers really are systems integrators, end users, and vendors. And we have offerings for all 3 of those groups. The big announcement, the big thing is last year we put on the ProveIT Conference. In February, we put on the first conference where all the vendors were going to come and they were going to do ProveIT sessions. They would prove the things that they always try to sell you. They were going to prove they actually work. And they came to ProveIT on a common virtual factory, which we built. It was modeled on a real manufacturer based here in Dallas. It was actually their real data. We recorded the plant for 2 hours and then played it in a loop. And all the vendors had 16 weeks to build proof of concepts. And then they presented on those POCs in February. We had 800 people from 43 countries attended the show. 67% of those attendees were end users. We are doing the same show this year, except much bigger in February, 16th to the 20th. We'll have about 1,500 attendees. We have 50 vendors presenting. And we're doing 3 virtual factories. So we're doing a standalone discrete manufacturing virtual factory. We're doing a multi-site discrete manufacturing virtual factory. And then we're also doing a life sciences virtual factory. And the vendors will get to choose which of the 3 virtual factories they want to integrate with. And in fact, the virtual factories get released to the sponsors next week. So, and I just want to do a quick plug on the ProveIT thing. So you guys are one of the gold sponsors. So we have 2 title sponsors this year. We have Litmus Automation and Inductive Automation are our titles. And then we have 6 gold sponsors. So we have MaintainX, Flow Software, HighByte, Google Cloud Services, HiveMQ, and then FUUZ. And then we have 22 silver sponsors, of which some of those are Aviva, Tatsoft, Maestro Hub, Tulip, Eucadine, Siemens Pharma is going to be there with WinCCOA. There are 22 of those. All of those will be presenting on stage. So everybody I just listed, the 2, 6, and 22. So there's 30 presentations that will be on stage. And then we have another 20 bronze sponsors who will be doing their Pruvit sessions at their booths only. And that's February 16th to the 20th. So that's
Yep.
basically what 4.0 Solutions does. Like, for example, Saturday, I'm flying to Portugal and I'll be in Portugal all next week. I'm meeting with an end user on Monday consulting. And then 2 days after that, I'm doing go-to-market strategy with an end user. That's what we do at 4.0.
That's awesome. I was actually on site with a client just this past week in Grand Rapids that you had worked with previously. Pretty large injection molder, 20,
Oh,
22 sites.
yeah.
And you came up in conversation, so we were in there kind of doing our FUUZ demo spiel, right? Kind of proving it to them in the conference room, so to speak. So yeah, we definitely talked about how you came in, helped them, understand how to architect things, how to make the best use of the technology and
Well,
all
it's
that
about
stuff.
it's about creating infrastructure. The big thing is, and I think what the mistake that a lot of manufacturers make in their first iteration of digital transformation is they approach digital transformation the way that they were approaching automation
Mm,
from, when the PLC came out in 69 and all the way until now. When they're automating industrial processes, they really do that turnkey. It's they define a sequence of operations and a functional specification, and then they write a request for proposal, and then they send that out, and they have very specific acceptance criteria, and this is what the site acceptance test is going to look like, and this is what the functional acceptance test is going to look like, and then they basically put that out to bid. The vendors bid on it. The vendor takes the stack of papers, and then they're gone for 6 months, 8 months, 9 months, a year, and then they come back and they do a cadence. They'll have milestones where they're getting paid,
Mhm.
but then they do functional acceptance, they do a turnkey, and they walk away. That is not how digital transformation is done. Digital transformation is about this small iterative step. The very first thing you're doing is going, okay, where are we as a company? Like,
mm,
where, if we were to build our factory today, how would we build it today? And what is the difference between how we would build it today and
Mhm.
how it exists? And then how do we get to where we would build it today? And so then you define, okay, we're going to create a digital strategy. Here is the reason we want to make data the primary commodity in our business. We want to be a link in a digital supply chain. We don't want to be a link in an old paper-based supply chain. And the difference between a paper-based supply chain, the legacy supply chain, and digital is the legacy supply chain is I only talk to the links directly upstream and downstream from me. I only talk to my suppliers and I only talk to my customers. And if I want to add new links, I have to get on the phone and find new suppliers and I got to find new customers. That's the old way of doing things, right? I mean,
mm,
Amazon doesn't go
Mhm.
out and call people. Do you want to be a customer at Amazon? That's not how it works. People find Amazon and they find Amazon through a digital infrastructure. That's digital supply chain. Guess who else finds Amazon? The vendors. Uh,
yeah.
there's nobody on the phone calling you if you want to buy a Tesla. There's no sales guy you're talking to or saleswoman to sell you a Tesla. You are finding Tesla and you are buying your car through a digital ecosystem. And so manufacturers are part of that digital ecosystem if they so choose. And that's what digital transformation is. And so much of what we do is about rewiring the way manufacturers think about solving problems. Because if they don't, then they're going to solve problems today the way they solved them yesterday. And that's not innovation. That's just more of the same.
Yep. Yep. So
Mhm.
what are some of the things that you would you brought up a couple of key terms. I think when we just got started here, you mentioned a few things that I know a lot of people have no idea what they mean. MCP,
Yep.
for one.
Sure. So
Talk a little bit about that.
So
But-
MCP is Model Context Protocol. So Model Context Protocol, for those of you who, if your level of knowledge in software is I use software, then we should explain how software is built. Okay. So all software is made up of only three components. Okay. There are other components you could add in, but there are three core components. There is a back end in software, some type of data store, some master data model, and a place where you can store data. There's an API, an application programming interface, that's basically code that says, how do I go get the data that's stored in the software? And then there's a user interface, and the user interface uses the API to interact with the backend. Okay. You've been using APIs forever. You just don't know it. The most common API, application programming interface, is what we refer to as a RESTful interface, basically what you do with your web browser. All right. Model Context Protocol is an API for agentic AI. Model Context Protocol was developed by Anthropic, which makes Claude, about 1.5 years ago, and it was released widely out into the market in basically January. Between January and now, in October, the software vendors all over the world have been building MCP servers for their software. So if you use Gmail, Google built an MCP server that made it possible for an agent like ChatGPT or Claude or Gemini to talk to your Gmail. And that's done over Model Context Protocol. So part of what in an industry, Model Context Protocol is going to be used where you in your organization are going to sit at a workstation or a piece of software without you interacting with it, are going to be able to use model MCP servers to talk to your industrial infrastructure, including things like acquiring data from your PLCs or pulling it from your MQTT broker or pulling it from your databases. The MCP server is how the agent is going to talk to the things you already have inside your facility. And the adoption of Model Context Protocol, this is not an overstatement. Okay, this is not an overstatement in any way, shape, or form. In the last 10 months, the adoption of MCP in industry and in the consumer market has happened faster than any other technological advancement in history. So there is no other technological advancement in history since the first industrial revolution that has been adopted faster than Model Context Protocol. There are hundreds of thousands of commercially available MCP servers today. Yep. And in April, there were like 6. So, and when I say 6, I literally mean 6. If you had gone to Claude in April, you had 6 options. Today, you have hundreds of thousands, including FUUZ has been working on their MCP server this summer. Every single software provider is building in MCP hooks so agents can talk to their software. So that's MCP.
Yep. Well, I appreciate that explanation, because we talk to manufacturers all the time who have these AI initiatives and they've never even heard of this. And I'm really wondering what they're even doing. But they're always starting at the end. We start with AI and they try to work their way backwards, and they haven't done anything with the data. They haven't got really a clue how they're going to make all this work. But some really great sales guys sold them on a flashy chatbot that they can, get all their engineering data. So
it's funny, Craig, I just shot a video today. Literally, I was driving back from my ranch and I asked Vaughn, I said, "Hey, Vaughn, are there any videos you need me to shoot? Something I could shoot while I was driving?" And he said, "Yeah, I want you to shoot what is it vendors are doing wrong?" Because we talked to lots of OEMs, lots of vendors, right? And I actually changed it to, what are the 3 questions I ask every single vendor? And I was telling everyone, I'm telling the audience, these are the 3 questions you should ask every vendor. So here's a little insight into it. Number 1, what problem do you solve? So if FUUZ comes to me and says, "Hey, we've got this awesome platform," which is really, it goes to market through MES, kind of bolted, tightly coupled to ERP. Like that's kind of how FUUZ goes to market. If you're a technologist and you kick the tires on FUUZ, you realize, okay, it's way more than that. It's actually an IIoT platform that's really, really good at creating both linear and non-linear relationships between objects in this platform. So you can basically build 3-dimensional relationships between data points. It's basically this very, very fancy ORM that has all these features that sit on top of it. And you basically can define the ORM however you want to. So if you're a technologist, you're going to understand what I'm saying. If you're an end user, you won't have any idea. So as the end user, what you're going to hear is they go to market as an MES solution tightly coupled to ERP. But what you have to understand is how FUUZ does that. There's technology that's unique to FUUZ that makes that possible. Okay. Well, if I ask you what problem you solve, which I did ask you, you guys you were able to give me an answer of, okay, this is how most people are using FUUZ to start. And I think most people would be surprised to hear that what they're really doing using FUUZ for to start is moving data from one place to another. They're doing data operations in FUUZ to start before they build functions on it. Okay. So number two, Mr. Vendor, tell me how well you understand your customer. So what are the 2 or 3 most common problems your customers have when you get started with them, and how are you solving them? Right. And then number 3, how easy do you make it for the people who have those problems to test drive your software? Those are the 3 questions I ask essentially every vendor. Right.
Yep.
Well, one of the interesting things that we discover in industry is when people are buying software, they are afraid to admit they don't know anything. The salesperson can come in and use fancy buzzwords, and they know that the average person is afraid to admit they have no idea what they're talking about. When you say MCP, they nod their head. When you say IoT, that sounds fancy. I really like that PowerPoint slide. They've got all the keywords on there, AI, machine learning, but the customer is never asking them, what do you mean by AI? What do you mean by machine learning?
Yep.
What do you mean by model context protocol? How does that help me? What problem is that solving for me? And that's how the end user ends up in these predicaments where someone promises AI, but never tells them all the things you have to do in order to realize the value of AI.
Yeah.
Right. Especially centered around data, contextualization and normalization of data. So, yes.
Yep. Happens all the time, clearly. Oh, man. Yeah, so a little bit on your perspective. I get you do a lot of traveling. You're talking to a lot of end users, vendors. What's a little bit of your perspective on, industry for, in manufacturing? Where are manufacturers on the curve? How are we doing? What are some things that you've identified as must do's right now for these manufacturers?
So we're actually, it's a 3-pronged answer because we're in a very interesting period of time right now. So when we say industry 4, in North America, we're generally talking about the 4th industrial revolution. In Europe, we're talking about the industry 4.0 standard that was announced at Hannover Messe in 2013 or 12. We have since realized that standard that was written in 2013, 2012 was theoretical. It wasn't application. And the European Union has kind of abandoned that definition of industry 4. Okay. And what's actually our new definition of industry 4 is really what's happened in North America. Okay. Where digital transformation starts from the ground up. So it's about connecting to all the smart things in your business, collecting all the data, storing all the data, then doing data operations on that data. And that is converting that data into information so you can make decisions. At the end of the day, digital transformation is converting data into decision making. Now, whether you have human beings making those decisions or whether you have human beings leveraging artificial intelligence to help make those decisions, or whether you are automating that decision process, whether you're having some autonomous agent or some autonomous workflow, something like in a PID loop, making those decisions, that's what digital transformation is. And it's about creating this infrastructure where I connect to all my data, collect, store, analyze, visualize, and then I do that iteratively. So a connect, collect, store, analyze, visualize journey could be the first step in that journey could be the only thing that I want to visualize is current state in my operation. What assets do I have running? Who's working on each of those assets? Who's at work today? Where are we according to plan? Like simple stuff. What's on, what's not on. The stuff that supervisors would generally do with SneakerNet. And then when you present that digitally, you start to get a better context about your business and you start identifying other problems that might need to be solved. So like, for example, I have insight into current state. I know where we are according to plan over the last 3 months because we've been seeing it each day as I'm staring at this, and we're doing interventions and mitigations. And one of the things that we may realize after 3 months of having insight into current state digitally is we have a problem with changeovers. We have a problem with nailing our changeover in the time that we planned for it. So now what I want to do is I want to go back to the drawing board. We're going to take what we have and we're going to connect to some additional data. We're going to collect some additional data. We're going to store it. We're going to do some data operations on it. And what we want to visualize is changeover relative to how it was designed. So I want to see, what did we say the changeover should be and what actually was the changeover. And then we may learn from that, and we may improve our changeover process through that insight. And then from that, we might go, okay, well, our problem with changeover is not the mechanics of changeover. The problem with our changeover is we're scheduling wrong, because I think we have an issue with scheduling, because going from product A to product B to product C is not the same as going from product A to product C to product B. Maybe if I go from A to B, my changeover time is 45 minutes. And if I go from B to C, my changeover time is 90 minutes. But if I go from A to C, my changeover is 30 minutes. And if I go from C to B, my changeover is 45 minutes. I've gained 45 minutes of utilization just by scheduling better. So my next iteration is, I want to use digital tools to take how I'm scheduling, look at our old data, and tell us, okay, I wouldn't go A, B to C here. It's optimal to go A, C to B. Okay. And so that's the third iteration. All right. So where are the standards in industry for? They're kind of, where is everybody right now in industry? They're in one of three places. The fifth industrial revolution has started. So that in the fifth industrial revolution is the convergence of human and artificial intelligence. It's a symbiotic relationship between agents like ChatGPT and Claude and standalone agents like Llama that you have running, in your facility, and they're not connected to the internet, making human beings better. Human beings provide the data, the context, and the prompts to the agent, and the agent is the force multiplier for the human being. You have people in industry unlocking the potential of agentic AI right now. You've got people who are still working on their digital journey, creating infrastructure. They're still putting in their digital backbone. We still only have 13% of the market has a digital MES system. That means 87% of manufacturers have their manufacturing execution system is on paper still. Mm-hmm. Well, you cannot unlock the potential of agentic AI if you don't have a digital MES system. You want to know why? Because the second most invaluable data in your business is in the MES layer. The most valuable is on the edge. It's in your PLCs, right? Most people think the most valuable is in the ERP. That's not true. Okay. The most valuable data in your business, yes, is on the edge. The second most value is the MES. So there are people, Craig, to your point, who need to be focusing on digitizing the MES layer. That is, they're moving to a digital MES layer. And then the third group, and this is the group that's in the most trouble, it's the group that has more than one layer in the stack. So the stack is 5 layers: PLC, HMI on the edge, SCADA, MES, ERP, cloud. You have a group that's got fully digital infrastructure. They're working on agentic AI. You've got a group that's got digital cloud, digital ERP, mostly paper MES, digital SCADA, digital edge, and they're working on digital MES so they can start working on agentic AI. And then you've got the group that's got more than one layer that's still paper. Mm-hmm. Those are the ones that are really struggling. And we're not even investing any time in those groups because I just don't think they're going to survive at this point. I don't think you can survive if you're that far behind. But we are investing most of our time in that second group, which is the group that needs to catch up on digital MES still.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's basically the landscape. That's the landscape right now.
Yeah, it's frightening, I guess, if you're a manufacturer sitting here listening to this, thinking, you just put this new fancy ERP system in, you thought you went digital. You kind of blew that out of the water.
I use this example all the time. This is a thing. If you're a manufacturer out there and you just put in a fancy ERP system, let me ask you this question. What is actually king in your business? Be honest. Go have a couple of glasses of whiskey, drink a pint of beer, warm up a little bit, and then answer honestly, what is king in your business? And if you answer anything other than production, you are lying to yourself. I have been doing this a very long time. Okay. Production is king. In every single manufacturer I've ever gone into, there is one thing and one thing only that is in charge, and it is production. Okay. It isn't safety. It's not quality. It isn't the way that you design the manufacturing operation in your ERP. You break all those rules on the plant floor when the only option is we have to do whatever it takes to get this out the door. Production is king. Okay. Here's the problem with your digital ERP. Not that ERP isn't important. Okay, it is. It's important, especially on the general ledger side. It's
Mhm.
incredibly important. Okay, it plays a very important role. The mistake that most manufacturers have made who have tried to make ERP the center of their universe is they've tried to ask ERP to do things it is not good at.
Yep.
Okay. You must create a digital infrastructure where ERP is a node in a much larger ecosystem. It is not the hub of your ecosystem. Okay. It produces and consumes into an ecosystem. And you ask it to be very good at the things it's good at, which is general ledger, finance, human beings, okay, bill of material products. But is there any ERP on the planet that's good at the execution of manufacturing? No,
No.
none, zero. Okay. That's the mistake that most manufacturers are making around ERP.
Yeah. And then they get really entrenched in that ecosystem, ERP
Mhm.
ecosystem, and then they're just kind of hosed. Like they're never going to make it to being digitally transformed.
Again, because ERP isn't about making data the primary commodity.
Yeah.
That is, ERP isn't designed for you to turn data into value for the business. ERP is focused on structure, rules, and compliance. That's
Mhm.
what it is. Okay,
Mhm.
that's what ERP is. Ask yourself this, Mr. Manufacturer. In an ERP system, if you've just done a digital ERP rollout, what did you spend the majority of your time doing? Building your business inside the ERP. That's what you spent the vast majority of your time doing.
Mhm.
Defining how our business works and how it's structured and what products
Mhm.
we make and what does a bill of material look like. Okay. You've spent the vast majority of your time creating rules that you want the rest of the business to operate on. Guess which part of your business doesn't operate on those rules? It's on the edge. It's your production environment. Your production environment is in a constant state of flux. It's a
Mhm.
constant state of continuous improvement that by default things change over time. And I use this example. I worked in the printing industry. I was telling you I worked in the printing industry. And one of the things, we had a SAP ERP in our facility. We were one of the early, this is pre S4HANA. We used SAP and we printed prospectuses in the financial industry. We printed other things, but 80% of our business was printing prospectuses and mailing them to stockholders. Okay. Um, so we had a printing environment. We would print, and then we would cut things into pages, and then we would go to the stitchers or the binders, and we would have to put all the pages stacked in 20 different cells and basically pass through pneumatically and stitch them all together. And you got the book, and then you basically strap them together, you throw them in a box, and then you ship them out. That's what we did. Okay. It takes multiple shifts to set up a stitcher to put together a book. So literally an operator will spend multiple shifts setting up the pneumatics to do the stitching. Okay. Multiple times we would have a cataclysmic breakdown on one of the stitchers midway through the process. So if we were using 20 cells to put a book together, cell 10 or 11 would have a cataclysmic failure that was going to be a multi-shift breakdown. Okay. We would basically have two options. Okay. Or really three options, but two options we were really choosing from. Were we just going to wait until it was fixed? No. Okay. Because we have shipping deadlines. The other option was we were going to set up another stitching line to print that whole book. So, but if we're choosing between setting up 9 cells on the next production line or setting up all 20, which one are we going to pick? Are we going, you know what they would do? They would go, okay, if cell 11 is the one that broke down, cells 1 through 10 are still good to go.
Mhm.
Okay, why don't we do this? Let's put a temporary conveyor between these two stitchers. And let's use cell 1 through 10 on production line 1 and then cell 11 through 20 on the next line over. So we only got to set up 9 more on the other line. And they would set up a temporary conveyor and put 2 human beings in there. And they would literally roll the book across and then set it. And it would save multiple shifts of setup. How do you manage that in your ERP, Mr. ERP person? And the answer is you don't. There's no ERP that is designed for that edge case, which is a very real edge case. And that's one of hundreds of thousands of edge cases, okay,
Mhm.
that we have in manufacturing. Part of the reasons I'm so high on FUUZ is FUUZ gives me the ability to be the abstraction layer between the reality on the plant floor and the system of ownership in the ERP. And because of the way that you guys manage data relationships, right? The composer that you guys have
Mhm.
gives us the ability to account for an edge case like that. I can basically create the relationship on the fly in FUUZ between line 1 and line 2, literally from cell 10 to cell 10 on line 1 to cell 11 on line 2. I can create that relationship in seconds inside of FUUZ, which is one of the reasons I love your guys' platform so much.
Yeah. Oh,
Right.
well, thank you. We like
Right.
it too. Um,
Yeah, by the
yeah.
way, Zach did a very good the video he did the other day on Instagram I saw when he was visiting you guys.
Yeah, have you
Absolutely
seen
loved what
all the videos? Some of the videos are a little risque, but they're fun. They're fun.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's Zach.
Um,
I mean,
yeah,
but
yeah,
the video he actually showed the composer,
yeah,
the well, I don't you guys call it something else, but
yeah,
it's data composition is what you're basically doing there. You're creating those rules. That was a very I thought it was a great video for the
yeah,
audience. I really
yeah.
did. And if you don't, you should go look at Zach Scriven's. I saw it on Instagram. You should go to his Instagram and see it on Instagram.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a number of videos floating out there now in the ecosphere. So yeah,
Very
they've been
cool.
here this week learning.
Yep.
We're teaching these guys how to build some apps in Fuse, so that's pretty exciting. Um,
I will say this. You know, you had the what a manufacturer should be doing right now,
mhm,
right? They should be if you are if you're in the group that's doing agentic AI. So if you're in that, that means you're digitally fluent. You have digital infrastructure already. You should really be having a come to Jesus moment internally about what the real expectations of agentic AI are right now. Like you should
mhm,
be honest with yourself about what's actually possible. I mean, Lance and I think, would have a great conversation on this, but I
Yeah.
think if you look at OpenAI came out with GPT-5 and it was not a exponential increase. We did not get exponential gain. So, and that's only in the third iteration. That means what we have learned recently in the last couple months is that the ceiling for LLMs is much lower than we thought. It's not nearly as
mm,
high. Large language model ceiling is not nearly as high. So the idea of autonomous agents is for most people is a pipe dream. It's
mhm,
really symbiotic agents between humans and AI. So if you're in that group,
yeah,
what you should be working on is let's be realistic about what we're going to use AI for. Okay.
yeah,
If you're in that middle group, that is, you're part of the 87% of people who don't have digital MES, or you have digital MES, but you don't have it integrated into one common digital infrastructure. So that is the OT data isn't been converged with the IT data in a common infrastructure, semantically organized current state. Then you need to be working there. You need to be working on, we have to
Mhm.
create digital infrastructure. And if you're in that last group, that is the group who's you're 50 years behind your competitors, then you really need to be either looking to exit, okay, or looking to sell to someone who is digitally advanced, or invest a ton of capital in catching up. Okay,
yeah,
but the reality is that what you should be doing right now is a function of where you land, and
yeah.
depending upon where you land, you're either focused being realistic about AI, or you're being very very focused on digital infrastructure.
This Pruvit conference sounds kind of interesting. Um, Lance and I attended this
Mhm.
past February, and we wanted to scope it out. We weren't quite sure. Coming IT down, right? It's a little bit. It's a different world. We're seeing
Yeah.
a lot of point solutions that this guy connects to a machine, this guy moves data from here to there, this other guy does this other little thing. We're not used to all of that, right? In the enterprise software world, you got to do it all, right? You got to
Right.
appease the IT masters. So it was very interesting. Couple of observations that I had that I want to share with the folks listening here is Lance and I ran into I don't even know how many people we ran into, Lance, that had taken their own personal time, right?
Mhm.
Time off of work, unpaid, from overseas,
Yep.
paid their own way to get here, to put themselves in a hotel room for a week. I mean, I've never been to a show that anybody was there not on their employer's dime.
I was stunned. In fact, there was one person we ended up reimbursing them because of where the conversion. I felt so guilty. I actually went to the vendors and I said to the vendors, these people, the conversion rate to the USD is 20-1. So they spent the equivalent of $100,000 of their own money to come to the show, their own money, not their employer's money.
Yeah.
Like, and are you guys interested? I said, I want to help reimburse them. Are you guys interested in supporting me? And several of the vendors signed on for it. Yeah, I was shocked too, man. I was absolutely shocked.
Yeah, I think I don't know about Lance, but I thought that was one of the most incredible things I mean, the demos and everything were great, and anybody that wasn't there should go on YouTube. They're all posted.
Yep.
Excellent demos. You know, Tulip did a nice job. I mean, there's several. I really liked the Google demo.
I actually thought it was the most important, and it didn't land. What they showed was, I don't think they did a good job of, delivering it.
Yeah, yeah.
But what they right, but what they showed was incredible. It was it should have been oohs and ahs. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
But
it
wasn't delivered in a way.
Yeah, it landed soft, but it was really good, and the other guys were really good. And Amy Williams did a nice job.
Yep.
We just we've been talking to them a lot too. The Skellig folks. We just met with them a week or so ago, I think. So we were. It was great for us. We were able to meet a lot of the OT SIs that were there. We don't know these guys. We never work with them. We work with a lot of the IT folks, PwCs and Accentures, but we got really a lot of exposure to a lot of different things. So I think it was super valuable for us.
Yeah.
Which is why we're going back.
And you're going as a gold presenter. So you're going to be presenting to all 1,500 people. So those who don't,
I'm nervous.
For those who don't know, like, where Pruvit came from was, I've gone to lots of conferences where I'm like, this conference is a waste of my time. Like, I get hired to speak at shows all the time. And most of the time, and I always go into the exhibit hall. So if I'm there to give a keynote address, I always go into the exhibit hall before I speak. And I talk to every vendor in the exhibit hall. And there are questions I ask all of them, including the 3 I've already mentioned. But there's another question I ask all of them. And that is, okay, let's say I want your technology and I want his down the hall. How do you two talk to each other? How do I take the data from your product and combine it with the data from that product? And I was always stunned at how very few vendors answer that question. It's always, oh, we've got an API, or we've got, we support OPC or whatever. And I'm like, okay, that's not an answer. Okay. That isn't an answer of how I combine them together. Okay.
Yeah.
So I wanted to create the show where the vendors were already connected together on one common infrastructure. That's number one. And number two, I wanted all of the presentations to be in context of one another. That's where the virtual factory came from. Yep. We recorded an actual factory. We gave them access to the databases. We gave them access to the unified namespace. We gave them access to all the data. And then we said to the vendors, you looking at this data, what would you, Mr. Vendor, what problem would you normally start with here? And then what you're going to do is you're going to build the solution. You're going to present it, and you're going to answer 4 questions. What problem did you solve? How did you solve it? How many man hours did it take? How much would it cost? And just by creating that environment, they came. People wanted to see vendors essentially competing with one another. And what turned out was it became collaboration.
Yeah.
The vendors all started working together. They were sharing data with one another. Opto22 generated a bunch of telemetry data in their PLCs that half the vendors used in their demos. You know what I mean? It became this huge, Cirrus Link created totally simulated production lines from our production lines that a bunch of people used with Sparkplug B. It became this big collaboration. So which honestly was amazing. It really was.
Yeah, it was fun to see a lot of the different vendors actually kind of built upon the others, right? Because they all kind of do their own little piece, and a lot of them were using each other's technology in their own presentation. So it was really different and cool to see. Well, I know Lance has a couple of things that he wanted to bring you up to speed on. I think that we've been working on over here.
I heard you guys have developer edition coming.
We do have that coming. Yep. The fellow in the office next door has been cranking away hard on that. So that'll be delivered as Docker containers, set of Docker containers. We'll have a Portainer template in their store.
Oh, awesome. So you guys are actually adding
Portainer IO.
Yep.
Thank you. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. Awesome.
Yep. We
So
had a
you guys
conversation
are
with
gonna you are gonna be in the template library
yep,
in
we had a
Fortainer.
chat with Neil, so
Awesome.
he's excited. So really, as we kind of chatted a few months ago, um, with the way the kind of software is architected, it really wasn't that big a lift. A lot of what we have to work through is really just how do we not give away the keys to the kingdom as part of this.
Right.
Like the software itself, getting it to run on containers, it already runs on containers. That's how we run it in production.
Right.
It's just how do we bring that down to, here's the image you can run for free. So yeah, so we'll have a developer edition. We're currently planning on a 2-hour refreshable trial, right, Craig? That's kind of the
Yeah.
pattern in a lot of other software. It seems to work really well.
So for
Um,
those, I mean, I'm assuming your audience knows how FUUZ works, but anybody who comes over here who's from my audience who hasn't tried
Mhm.
FUUZ yet.
yeah.
So FUUZ is basically a tenant is spun up for you in the cloud, and then you have a gateway that you deploy on-prem. Generally, you deploy a
Mhm.
gateway and that gateway is then certified to your tenant. Okay,
Mhm.
so you basically use a private key that connects them, and then that gateway is the tenant's connection into your plant.
Yep.
And so all the work that you do in the tenant is actually deployed into the gateway. You're basically orchestrating in the tenant what's going to happen in your gateways. So it's not just one gateway. You could have many gateways, but
Right.
you start with one generally. So now what Lance, what you're saying is the tenant itself is going to be deployed. Well, it's not a tenant at that point, but
Right.
the brain, the orchestration tool will be deployed in a container where in wherever you want to put it. You're not limited to in
Yep.
FUUZ's app environment. Awesome.
Correct. Yep. That could be your own sort of, if your Docker desktop, you want to try it out, or Azure. We use AWS. You can do it AWS, Google.
Did you
Uh,
guys get hit?
whatever
Did you guys have an outage the other day?
No, thankfully, and we're pretty pleased with the way we architected the platform. We dodged it. We did have slightly increased error rates. I think we peaked at
Sorry,
about 5%.
McDonald's.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
not
think we
just
peaked at about.
McDonald's.
It
USAA.
The world.
was
Yeah,
big. Yeah,
one of my banks is USAA. They were completely dark
yeah,
because the entire infrastructure was on that Eastern data center.
yep,
I'm like,
yeah.
how did that happen?
And that's why AWS keeps trying to push people off US East One, because that's just they have so much of their own internal infrastructure that's just centralized there.
Mhm.
But so we I'll say we dodged a bullet. I mean, I'm not I'm not going to say it was some incredible brilliance on our part, but yeah, thankfully we were lucky on that one. Yeah, so yeah, we're on AWS, but yeah, so it'll be a set of containers. So
So is that going to be the on-prem solution, or are you okay? And
yep,
then what about this Edge apps, the Edge apps release?
yeah. Do you want to? I'm not sure what you were aiming at with that bullet, Craig.
Yeah, so
Which one's fine?
what we've done is the guys have been working really hard to create the separation between, right? It's like your
Ah,
red and blue models, right?
right, right,
Ah,
right.
okay.
So
Yes.
in the tenant layer, in the enterprise layer, you have your enterprise data graph schema, and you need to be able to extend that, right, from one plant to
Mhm.
the next, or even from one line or one machine to the next machine. So with the gateway, some enhancements we've made, we'll be able to deploy entire applications essentially at the edge that can run completely independent of that cloud connection.
Mhm.
So we're doing things like machine to machine communication, real
Mhm.
HMIs at the edge, right?
Yep.
Just, I don't want to say SCADA because we're not trying to be SCADA,
Right.
Yeah.
but if you're trying to transform rapidly, we have everything you need in the platform to do that. That's the
Here,
whole goal, right?
to your point right there. This is I get this question all the time. Where do you fall? Where does software A fall in the stack? And I
Mhm.
always have to preface it with this. If the people who are designing platforms for industry are they're successful, that is people are unlocking value from their solution, then their customers are naturally asking them to do a lot more. It just becomes, can
Mhm.
you do X? Could we add feature Y? Could we add feature Z?
Yep.
And the implication in our market is that it is flattening our stack. So
Yep.
rather than things being solely in ERP or software being solely in the MES layer or being solely in the SCADA layer or solely in the edge or solely cloud, what's happening is those lines are blurring. The stack is
Mhm.
flattening And there's this overlap between all these layers, and you can tell the true maturity of a platform the harder it becomes to define which layer of the stack it fits in. You can tell how mature it's becoming based on how hard it becomes to define where it fits in the
Yeah.
in the stack, right?
Could relate.
And so it doesn't surprise me at all that at some point, it's, can you supervisor control and data acquisition means, can I control machines? Can I monitor and control machines? And the answer is, there's no reason why you would not be able to do that in FUUZ. I mean,
Yeah.
that's not what FUUZ was designed for. It's not what was ultimately built for, but it doesn't mean that that's not something you can't do in it.
Yeah.
Yep.
For sure.
Yeah.
I think I think the last thing that Lance should take credit for is the new user experience that's on its way. So I know you had given us a lot of notes when we met last time, and that's been one of our things, especially making sure we get this right before we do a developer edition.
Yep.
Because we want people to really get in there and be able to smoothly get their user story done quickly.
Connect to something, collect some of that data, transform it, and visualize
See it. Yep.
Yep.
And so we've had a lot of these same conversations, as you can imagine, this week with Dylan and Zach being here, right?
Yes.
So very it's like deja vu. So everybody's on the same page.
Yes.
Yep.
And ironically, I think we woke up yesterday morning and like half of the system had already changed over, and they were like, what happened?
Yeah.
Why'd my system change? Like, well, that's the nice thing about cloud. We can just pull the carpet out from under your feet. But so we're starting to see all that.
Yeah, major navigation rework.
Sweet.
That's the starting point, is making sure that you got to surface all the important parts of the platform and make sure that that's discoverable in some way. That's always been a weakness of how we've structured navigation. We're working on.
Well, but if you understand how customers were being successful with FUUZ initially,
right? Yeah,
it makes sense, right? Because your services group has played a big role in their success, and so your services group is who you have to, like, they only really have to need to know how to get to where they're going, and then they have to be able to teach the customer how to do that, right? I mean, at the end of the day, it went OEM, your services group, end user, right? And integrators are relatively new to this process at scale, right? And so you guys are just now scaling up this massive integrator program, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it does make sense. But the barrier to entry for that is people must be able to figure out how to get to where they need to go without somebody explicitly telling them how to do it. Right. Yeah. And that's what all these UX changes are.
Yep. Yeah. The genesis of the software product was always, it started as an internal tool set that we used. Right. And we're all like, we didn't used to have a platform team and a delivery team. We had one group of engineers who did it all. And so, when you're using your own software, like, ease of use is about the last thing you think about. Right. You're worried about functionality, capabilities, can it solve the problem?
Because you know how it works.
Exactly.
You know how it works.
Yep.
Exactly.
So, and that, but that only gets you so far, right? So it's definitely, it's time for us to definitely go back and make sure that things are discoverable and like I say, you kind of walk through some of those user stories.
How is your traction in the market? Like, you guys had, the way that you guys go to market was rock solid, right? Basically partnered in these big implementations in ERP, and there's a lot of things that ERP providers can't provide, and you guys can easily and seamlessly do that on their behalf. And that's kind of where a huge piece of your go-to-market had been. But how has things changed, since we met, at the first half of the year, and since then, how has your traction in the market changed? For my own, because we haven't had a chance, Craig and I haven't talked in a couple months. I haven't had a chance. How have things changed for you guys?
Yeah, I can say, getting more involved with the OTSI crowd has definitely opened up a lot of different channels that we haven't really looked at yet. And it's really exposed, I think, to your point when we got started talking today, it's really exposed more to us what the value is that we bring to the OT side of the business. Which,
and I guarantee everybody's saying the same thing, right? Dylan must have said the same thing I said, same thing. Amy must have said the same thing I did. Like, your core value here is this
Yeah, it's the data.
orchestration of data modeling,
Yeah,
right? Okay. Yeah.
right. It's the data modeling and data ops and data orchestration and being able to connect all the pieces of the business together and have that
Mhm.
one single pane of glass,
Right.
single source of truth, whatever. Uh, yeah, that's working in the IT ERP space for so long. That was never something we would even leave our lips, right? Because you're talking to the ERP guys and they're the center of the universe,
Correct.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and anytime we started to kind of encroach upon that, they would get really,
Territorial.
really
Mhm.
territorial, right? So the more of the MES we started to take over, the more we would take over inventory, traceability, all the operations, and it
Warehouse
was
management. You guys have,
warehouse management,
yeah, well,
maintenance.
solid.
Maintenance, yeah.
Yeah.
And they're like, "Oh, you're doing a little too much. All we got is a GL over here." And it's like, well, maybe just do what you do well and let
Right.
us do what we do well.
Yep.
Yeah, so it's been very interesting several months working with a lot of these new partners. They're great. They're bringing us into all sorts of new industries. We're doing a lot more in the life sciences. I know we talked about that, and you were like, "How'd you guys get in there?"
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I mean, I think anybody with an open mind can see how to apply the platform to solve their problems.
Right.
So it's a very difficult question when you ask me, what problem do you solve? Right? Because there's not one
Yeah.
problem we solve. It's
Right.
not the problem isn't just I can connect to your machines with a driver. It's not just I can move data from A to B. It's not that I can generate a label. I mean, those are problems we solve, but I think several other OEM vendors have that leg up on us that the problem they solve is so finite.
Mhm.
It's so easy to articulate, right? You can fit it on one page. We just don't have that.
That's the difference between product and platform,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
A product has a list of features and benefits and it's finite.
Mhm.
A platform has solutions that people generally build first,
Mhm.
but what you can build, there's no limit. I mean, it's
Yep.
the difference between
Yep.
FUUZ again falls into the IIoT platform category, the rapid application development environment upon
Mhm.
which you solve problems in your business. So when people say, well, what problem do you solve? You go, well, there probably isn't any problem we can't solve in your business as it relates to digital. We're probably going to be able to solve all of them. There's
Mhm.
probably not a use case you're able to come up with. However, if you want me to tell you the three most common problems that are solved with our platform first, they are A, they're B, they're C.
Mhm.
That's
Mhm.
at the end of the day. This is the issue when we're talking about inductive automation all the time. Ignition went to market as SCADA, but the irony is that SCADA is probably the least powerful thing they do. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But they had to pick a thing, and the same thing with you guys. You guys are a layer above. You're still an IoT platform, but really where you land is in that it's that the intersection between MES and ERP, and
Mhm.
it's
Mhm.
that gateway into the business from ERP. And but that's only a starting point. That's not
Yeah.
actually the limits
Yep.
of what Fuse does.
Yeah.
You
Yeah,
know,
that's just where we get started.
and to your point, the biggest challenge is when you start with a clean tenant, it's just a blank canvas,
Mhm.
Yep.
right? It's a blank canvas and you haven't even put the base layer of paint on yet.
Yeah.
You literally you
Yeah.
start with
Yep.
everything. You build it all from scratch in the
Yep.
platform. Not that there aren't apps, but you still have to wire the data into apps, right? I mean, but Dylan Dufresne at Avalara. I mean,
Yeah.
he's been in
Yep.
the community for years. He's super gifted. I've talked about him all the time. Like, hey, Dylan's going places. Amy Williams at Skellig, same thing. When I first met Amy, it probably was like the second conversation I ever had. I said, Amy's a rock star. She will be, and if you look, like, she's the face of Skellig for the most part,
Yeah.
and
Yep.
she played a huge role at Pruvit last year. So I mean, and
Yep.
then you're talking to all the right people.
Yeah.
You're getting the right direction.
Yeah,
Yep.
we,
The right.
I did ask her to take it easy on us.
Prove it.
Like,
We'll see how that pans out.
yeah, slip her a 20 or something so she doesn't, roast us.
Yeah.
But, yeah,
Getting lots of
so,
great feedback, that's for sure.
yeah,
Yeah.
she absolutely did. I guess, so Walker, before we wrap this up, what is next for Walker Reynolds?
It's two things. So one of the things that we haven't announced this publicly yet, so I'll announce it here.
Oh
Um,
boy.
we have been working with a bunch of OEMs have reached out to us over the last 6 months and asked us essentially to, like, be their go-to-market platform in
Mm,
North America. And I really went back and forth, man. Do I really want to do this? And because we're agnostic, like we don't enter into commercial partnerships. We not that we don't have strategic partnerships with vendors, but the difference between a strategic and commercial is a commercial partnership means that I'm promising you some type of revenue.
Yeah.
Like I'm going to hit some
Mhm.
sales goal. That's commercial. Strategic means we have a tightly coupled relationship. And when an opportunity arises that fits for you, I'm going to take it all the way to the wall for you. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
So we do strategic, we don't do commercial. But what we are doing is we are announcing an e-commerce platform. We have been strongly encouraging vendors to basically offer, let's go 5 tiers of licensing. Tier number 1 is land and expand, 2-hour resettable license. Anybody can test drive your software, and they don't have to buy anything. Level 1 is a license that can be purchased with a P card. So somebody who is an engineer or a supervisor, or they have a company credit card and they want to buy a single seat to put on their own workstation to do stuff with. And then the tier above that is a level. So that's generally $1,000 or less is what an engineer can approve of on his company card. Then the next tier of licensing would be like $5,000 or less. That's like what a supervisor can approve. And then the tier above that is $49,999 or less. That's what a plant manager can approve. And then the tier above that is enterprise licensing. We have been strongly encouraging vendors to do this type of thing.
Mhm.
We are currently building the e-commerce platform to be the place where the end user can go to buy the first
Okay.
2 licenses. So the one that's less than 1,000, the one that's less than 5,000. We are going to handle all of the training. We're going to handle all the go to market for all of that. And we have 4 vendors we're going to be doing it for first. And so we're in the process of building that up. And the idea is to get products to the end user, like overcoming the barriers that keep end user from using the products that they should be using, right? We're trying to lower those barriers.
Mhm.
And by us offering this through this e-commerce platform, we can strip down those barriers. People can get to the paid license without having to jump over the hurdle of
Mhm.
business development and account management and all that kind of stuff, and go
Yeah.
through purchasing and all that jazz. So that's
Yeah.
one big thing. And then the second big thing is the ProveIT Conference. We are scaling it up massively. But I would say the thing that I haven't talked to you about that I want to invite you, the folks from FUUZ, to come present. We've just launched the Integrator Growth Program. We did our
Mm.
first IGP workshop. So we have 21 systems integrators have joined this program, and we're helping them scale their businesses as Industry 4 integrators. Many of these integrators, after doing the first 4-hour workshop last week, many of these integrators are going to land in that MES layer. Like their go-to-market is going to be, and so FUUZ is a natural fit.
Yeah.
Partnership between those integrators and you guys would be a natural fit. So, but the integrator growth program is a big focus. So those 3 things, the e-commerce platform, the ProveIT conference, and IGP are kind of where my focus is really going to be over the next 16 months or so. And
Okay.
I do plan on semi-retiring. I do, and I will in February semi-retire. I'll cut back to about 2 days a week, and then 3 days a week I'll be working on the ranch and doing stuff out
Yeah.
there.
All
Cool.
right. Well, good for you. Good
We'll
for you.
see.
And the IGP sounds really fun. So definitely let us know on that. That'd be
Yeah. I'm gonna have Vaughn. It's already on the list. I had to talk to Vaughn before we did this. That hey, we need to make sure we bring FUUZ in so we can get them in
yeah.
one of the presentations. So basically, we're doing IGP is 4-hour workshops. So we did foundations last week with 21 integrators. Then we're doing business development next month, 4 hours, and then we're doing operations 4 hours in December, and then January we're doing the finance, and then the cohort meetings we'll meet with the integrators in groups of 10 starting in February
Mm.
for 90 minutes a month. And in those sessions, we're going to be addressing issues with their businesses, the problems they bring in, but we're
Yeah.
also going to be inviting guest speakers to come in and talk about specific solutions to specific problems that integrators have.
Okay.
And that's where
Awesome.
we'd like to bring you guys in.
Awesome. Yeah,
Very
that'd be
cool.
great.
Awesome.
Yeah, very cool. Well, thanks, Walker. I mean, I really appreciate it. I know
My
you're
pleasure.
busy, so
Yeah.
thank you for coming on here. It was great. Look forward to
Yeah.
working with you guys. I think more next month, right? We've got
Yeah.
more.
Next month,
Good to chat.
you guys are the big our big sponsor. You guys are sponsoring the Industry 4 community next month. And so you guys are going
Right.
to see those
Awesome.
in our community are going to see a lot of FUUZ in the
Yeah.
month of November.
Yeah, I know we're really excited to learn more about the mastermind, and get more involved in the community
Yeah,
from
you
that.
guys are presenting in next month's mastermind,
Yeah,
right?
I mean,
Yeah,
there's so much stuff we need to start getting ready for. It's
yeah,
crazy.
Yeah, we're
Not to mention,
looking forward to get the Pruvit spec. Yeah, exactly.
yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
Pruvit spec goes out, I think Monday or Tuesday.
okay,
Cool.
We just had our technical meeting. So you guys will start doing. You guys will be able to connect all the infrastructures Monday or Tuesday and start doing load testing. Takes a couple of weeks to do all the load testing and make sure with
yeah,
all the vendors connected, that we're not taking down the databases and stuff. And then you'll all be able to start on your Pruvit sessions once we release the infrastructure to you.
we
I
can't wait.
appreciate it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks, man. See ya.
Thank you. Yeah.